So one thing we forgot to talk about in the Comic-Con episode was, I guess the news broke yesterday that Henry Cavill has a mustache right now, and they're shooting reshoots for Justice League. So Warner Brothers is going in and digitally removing the mustache from every shot.
Oh, no.
Because I guess he needs it for another role that he's doing right now. So that's fun. I kind of want to see Superman with a mustache now, though.
Same here.
But, yes. Hello, Lois, as he twirls the ends of his mustache. Hey, everybody, welcome to You Have to Watch This Podcast. I'm Alan.
And I'm Ryan.
And today we're going to talk about Dog Day Afternoon.
Yes.
A movie I had never seen before.
And a movie that I have always liked. Always. From when I was like 10.
Okay.
To be honest.
And,
I know it's odd for like a 10-year-old to like this movie.
Yeah, that's very odd.
Oh, I love it. It was great.
Not that it's a bad movie. It's just a weird thing for a 10-year-old to
it is.
see.
It definitely is.
Full disclosure, I dozed off at points because I watched this very late last night.
Okay, I'll fill in the gaps for you.
I mean, I don't think I missed much.
No, it's...
At one point I woke up and they're talking about his transsexual lover.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, wait, what?
That's actually one of the big points about this movie.
But I caught up. I caught up.
Yeah, we'll get to that.
But yeah, so Dog Day Afternoon with Al Pacino and what's her name? One of the women who works in the bank. I recognized from other things.
Yes.
Carol Kane.
Yeah.
That's the name. Yeah, Carol Kane. I did not expect her in this.
She was the one that was the squirrel.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Because she did, she was in... Oh, my wife pointed it out last night. Because I watched it again last night, too.
Yeah.
It's just... even though you have the disc, I have other ways to watch this movie. I like it so much. Oh, my God. What was it? She pointed it out because I've never noticed it before.
She was in Scrooge.
But then she was in something else more recent. And
Kimmy Schmidt.
And they made the reference about her being a squirrel.
Okay.
Oh, no. SVU, Special Victims Unit.
Oh, okay.
She is his ex-wife, the one that like knew all the different conspiracy theories.
Munch,
yeah.
She played Munch's wife?
She played Munch's ex-wife. That just was like crazy.
That is amazing casting. Like, I kind of want to watch that episode of SVU now.
Yeah, because I think it was...
That's fantastic.
I think it was it Ice-T? Because he's in that, right?
Yes.
Yes. He makes a comment about...
Anyone who hasn't seen John Mulaney's stand-up, yes,
Yeah.
Ice-T is in SVU.
Yeah, I know. It's just... Because... Whenever I go to say Ice, it's either Ice T or Ice Cube, and I know that one's younger than the other one, but I still get the names crossed.
It's not Ice Tea, it's lemonade. Read the sign.
I know. But he makes a comment about, like, who's the squirrely old broad or whatever, and he just walks by and goes, "That's my ex-wife." And then Ice T just kind of stands there, like, embarrassed because he made, a stupid comment, and they just kind of forget about it. But yeah, no, she plays Munch's ex-wife.
Huh.
Yeah.
The more you know.
Exactly. That's why I love watching movies with my wife, because if somebody's in SVU, she knows it. It doesn't matter how old or young they are.
Let's face it, everyone's in SVU.
I know.
It's been on for so long.
It has.
Yeah. Has it been on longer than the original Law and Order at this point?
I think it has, yeah.
Damn.
But yeah, so I mean, it's but when it comes to the movie though, besides trailing off on SVU, what did you think of the setup of the movie? Like
the setup,
how the movie started.
I liked it. I like a heist movie, and it was very like start of the heist, and you had the guy back out in panic at the beginning, and they waited for the mom and child to leave, and I really liked the way they got into it because I didn't know shit about this movie until I think I read like the synopsis at the top of IMDb just to see what I was getting into. Oh, bank robbery. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really liked how they established where they were with all the shots of Brooklyn and everywhere around there. Because I was like, I've been to Brooklyn a few times. Friend of the show, Bill, lived out there, and we go to visit him from time to time.
Yeah,
and I've driven through Brooklyn. And
it's fun, isn't it?
Oh, it's not that bad.
It's not.
I will never drive through Manhattan.
Yeah,
Brooklyn I can do.
Yeah, it's really not that bad. I mean,
I need a drink afterwards, but
yeah.
But yeah, so I like that it showed you where you were and it establishes it's a hot summer day.
Yeah,
like
in the mid-70s,
in mid-70s.
It's showing that it's the 70s because I mean it's dirty. Like they're showing that Brooklyn is not a clean area. Like it's
no hipsters,
and
maybe a few hippies,
a few. But this was back before New York got cleaned up. Like this was back when like the subway cars were covered in like graffiti. I mean the streets weren't swept because they didn't have the funding for it. Like this was back when New York got its bad rep. Like it was during this time period.
Back when New York was Gotham.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean,
minus
really.
the clowns and the bat vigilantes.
Yeah, the clowns were the drug dealers and the mob bosses, and the Batmen were really nowhere to be found.
Yeah. It's almost like superheroes aren't real.
Yeah, I know. It's sad, isn't it?
We live in the darkest timeline.
Darkest timeline.
I was going to work that into every episode. Yeah, I had never seen this.
Yeah.
I think this is the earliest I've ever seen Pacino.
Yeah, and this was the first movie that I'd ever seen him in. Obviously, since I said I saw when I was 10, this was the first movie that I saw where I, one, recognized who he was, and it really cemented who he was for me.
Okay.
Like, that's Al Pacino. And it wasn't that I thought of him as this like everyday guy going through a mental breakdown, trying to do something that he wasn't ready for, because obviously he wasn't.
Yeah.
Because you can tell, like that was not him. Like that, the entire. I'm kind of going ahead here, but I'm kind of jumping ahead. But throughout the entire movie, they give you moments where you're just like where you kind of feel for him. I mean, he's going in to rob a bank, but the more you learn about his life and the people in it, it's one of those things where it's like, this dude's just crying for help.
Yeah.
Like, he didn't know what else to do. Like, he had a mental break and he snapped.
Yeah.
And he wasn't prepared for this because, I mean, he's doing things that his hostages are asking him to do. You know,
he's very nice to his hostages.
Yes, very.
Which you don't see ever
in movies.
I mean, I feel like I can think of a few examples if I really thought about it. Like where people treated their hostages
poorly.
Well, nicely.
Nicely, yeah.
But they're all escaping me right now, so they're not that good. Yeah, he's very relaxed.
Yeah.
And it's almost off-putting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can tell something's wrong just because of that. Like, something's not right.
Yeah.
And his partner is kind of more like, what the fuck you doing? Like, get back in here or I'm going to shoot these people. Like, he's more on the edge. And
you can tell that he's mentally disturbed right from the get-go.
Yeah.
I mean, because there are things that he just does that you just, like, both of them, like, this to me shows how good of an actor Al Pacino is.
Yeah.
Because I personally get lost in his character in this movie because he does such a good job. Like, I don't, even now when I watch this movie, I don't see the coach from Any Given Sunday.
Yeah.
I don't see him from his other roles. Sometimes when actors do such a good job in a movie, it's hard to differentiate when you see them in something else doing that because you're thinking to yourself, no, he's not a robot. He's a kindergarten teacher.
When it comes to Pacino, wasn't there a point where he just went off the edge?
He did.
Yeah, it wasn't like Dick Tracy. Everything after that is like, hoo-ah!
Pretty much,
like,
yeah.
I'm Al Pacino. like, here, it's more subdued. Like, he's not the Al Pacino that you see in anything from the last decade.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
but it just, when it comes to the characters, him working with the cops. I mean, I saw this movie back before I knew what happened with Attica. I saw this movie before I knew.
What is Attica?
Attica was a prison riot. The cops went in to end it and ended up killing not just the inmates that started the riot, the inmates that had themselves in separate cells that didn't want to be part of it. They just went through and just, like, it was a war zone in that.
Okay.
I mean, granted, the rioters did kill prison guards. They took over control of the prison. They were rioting for every other reason. For every other, whenever there's a prison riot, there's always a common connection: being treated poorly. And I don't care if they're prisoners or not. There is a certain level of human decency that needs to be shown to everybody, regardless. But They always riot over conditions, unfair treatment, it's kind of the same thing. But just, being able to have decent, conditions that you're not you're not boiling in the summer, you're not freezing in the winter, you have decent food at least to eat.
Yeah.
These were the things that they were upset about, and it was a powder keg, and it just went. And when they rioted, I think there was a handful of prison guards that were actually killed. They had control over the prison for, I think, a week or more. And when the police went in, it was bad. Like, they just busted in the front. All they did was kick in the front door, and they just started shooting. And they killed the guilty and innocent, and I think some of the prison guards that were held hostages were killed in the shooting.
Wow.
And they were the only ones that had guns, really. So, I mean, that's where the whole Attica thing came from, and that's why when he started shouting Attica, and he used that as an example in the movie, that's why there were certain members of the crowd that you saw, like, chanting with him, because that was, at that time in the early 70s, this movie came out in 75, but at that point, when this actual robbery happened, like, this is based off an actual event, that was still fresh in people's minds. It would have been like if somebody did this and brought up Waco, like, I think Waco happened in 92, 93. Maybe
92 or 3.
You were 2 or 3, okay. So around that time, it would have been like if somebody did this, and instead of bringing up Attica, they would have been shouting Waco.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's showing, that, being upset of, like, the abuse of power, pretty much.
Yeah.
But besides my story on that, it's just, like, prior to knowing what Attica was, and prior to knowing what the issues were in the, like, late 60s, early 70s, even when it came to, like, having, the LGBT, I think I said all the right letters in that. I'm always bad at that.
I think there's a few more letters.
Yeah, the LGBTQ or something. Yeah. When it comes to that part too, like, I had no idea about any of that stuff. But when I was young, what captivated me was the storyline and the acting that was in it. Yeah. Because it was everybody. It really was everybody in the movie. Everybody did a great job.
Yeah,
and
everyone
that's what really
is
drew
great
me into
it. I knew, like, looking at IMDb, I'd recognize a few of the names. Yeah. But I couldn't really place them that well. One thing that struck me about this movie is there's really no music.
No, there really isn't.
Like, there's music, I think, at the beginning. Yeah. And that's it.
And I think that's part of why it's really odd. I know we talked about The Day the Earth Stood Still and how that formed my political opinion. This movie kind of formed my way of, like, what's a good movie? Like, what takes a good movie? Yeah. And that's why whenever we go to see movies, like, you always talk about music.
You don't need it.
I never do, because this movie, like I said, I saw when I was 10, and that's really when I started grasping, like, what I liked and what I didn't. And I started realizing that a lot of movies that I really liked that had to do with, like, serious topics, like more dramas, they didn't really have music in them. Yeah. So to me, it was the storyline, it was the acting. And I think that's why I'm not that big into, like, movie scores as much as other people. Because of this, partly because of liking this movie and a couple others that are kind of similar to this. But I think that's kind of formed my my judgment base.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of another movie that doesn't have much music, but all I know is movies with music, as you just said. So, they really make you feel like you're in the bank. Like, they do a really good job of that, because it's very, you only stay, from a majority of the movie, you're either in the bank or right outside of it. Yeah. And it gives you a good feel of where you're at, like the space that the characters are living in. And I really liked that. And then a few times you'd go out and you'd be with his wife. Yeah. But I really like that it defined what space, like, you felt like you're in the space with everyone in the movie. Like, you're either in the bank or outside of it. Yeah. Like, you're there with them, and it made it feel more real.
So at what point did you wake up? Because I know you said you fell asleep, and that's fine, because this movie is long.
I kept going, I kept going in and out, and then Al Pacino would start yelling for the cop, and it kept waking me up. So thanks, Pacino.
Pacino alarm clock at your service.
I had myself an Al Pacino. Perk me right up. Hoo-ah. No, it was just that I was laying on the couch and like a few times I'd feel like I was going out and then, oh, no, I'm awake. So I don't think I really missed much. I think it was just like a lot of back and forth. Like he kept running in and out of the bank.
Yeah.
Because there was a lot of that.
There was a lot of that. And that was part of, I feel like almost 60% of this movie was them like unveiling how crazy his life was. And you really don't see that until they bring in, they call him Leon in the movie, which would be the guy that he married, who eventually did actually have the actual person. I think she changed her male name to female, and then took her male name and made it her middle middle name. I think it was Eddie or Eden. But anyway, during that scene when Leon was in the chair, he was describing how messed up his life was.
Yeah.
He went to Vietnam, and the fact that he's living in New York, a lot of people seem to forget this from our age group, is that when the Vietnam vets came back, they did not have a good time.
No.
Like Vietnam vets were scorned by a lot of people. They were, walked up randomly and told horrible things because they've been in Vietnam. But anyway, that's a whole different discussion. So he really didn't get the mental help that he needed when he first came back. He's describing about how his dad and his mom were basically a car wreck together. His jobs were always a mess. He was a bank teller at one time, and that's how he knew everything. But also about, his wife didn't really, they didn't have a good relationship at all.
Yeah.
And he just snapped under all of this pressure. And being that it was the 70s, now this movie came out in 75. The actual robbery happened in 72. And the actual, and when it came to the storyline part with Leon and with the gay community, that all happened.
Yeah.
That was partly why he robbed the bank, was for Leon's sex change. 1972.
Yeah. Oof.
So I mean, this movie this movie went into areas that normal America wasn't ready for at that time.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the things. Like as I got older, I liked this movie because of Al Pacino when I was younger. As I got older, I started actually loving this movie for its overtones, for what year it was made and what actually happened. But I mean, when it came to when it came to showing the cops, what did you think of that? Like how they showed them, the back and forths, like the negotiator yelling at them. Like, how did you feel about that?
I liked that the negotiator was trying to keep control of it, and he didn't really have control because he had people try to get in the back without him knowing.
Yeah.
And people kept getting closer and closer, and he would always freak out. And then the one guy tackles Pacino, and he's like, that wasn't us. I'm sorry, that wasn't us. Like, don't do anything stupid.
Yeah.
But I like the back and forth because it showed if you were to just stay in the bank the whole time, it would have been
a nightmare.
I mean, it would have been difficult just from a filmmaking standpoint. Like if you're in the bank that whole time, and the only interaction he has with the police is over the phone or through the window.
Yeah.
Like that's just boring. Like seeing both points of view.
Yeah.
Like how they're trying to handle it and what's going on inside the bank, and like they were concerned about everyone being okay. Everyone's fine. Like a few people get sick because they're diabetic or have asthma.
Yeah.
But you needed that back and forth just because it would feel too claustrophobic if you stayed in the bank.
Yeah. And it almost happened at the right moments too. Yeah. Because they'd spend a lot of time in the bank, and then something would happen to where he had to run outside, or something would happen to where he had to go to the back door. And occasionally towards the end, they actually broke it up and took you to the airport. Yeah. And that was something that kind of threw me for a loop, because I saw it when I was really young, like I said, like around the age of 10. And then as I got older and started watching it more, I started realizing like where they started taking you outside the bank to into the actual airport, where that actually finally towards the end of the movie, like you need that release, like you need that, like, okay, I need to get off this street.
Yeah.
We need to get off this street.
Yeah.
So they basically just take it to where the movie's going to end.
Kind of like when you're home all day. It's like, you know what? I just need to get out of the house. Like, I
Yeah.
don't care where I go. Just go for a walk, go for a drive. I just need to get out of the house for a
Yeah.
little bit. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's where, like, I felt that's where they were going for with
Yeah.
that one. Okay, what did you think of the bank manager? The way that, like, the bank manager and then the lead teller, because there were a couple scenes in there that were kind of interesting.
Yeah, it almost seems like most of the tellers are on Pacino's side. Like they kind of like after like he's treating them so nicely, it almost seems like Stockholm syndrome.
Yeah,
Like they kind of like, yeah, we'll get on the plane with you. Like we'll go, like get out of here.
yeah,
The bank manager, like he I'm guessing in a situation like that, that's what you have to do. You have to play along because he's looking out for everyone. Like,
Yeah.
he's making sure that his employees don't get hurt, and he's also making sure that they don't see anything that will scar them.
yeah,
Like so, he's trying to protect everyone in that bank. So he's telling Pacino, "Don't do that. We don't need anyone killed here." So he's like looking out for everyone, and I really liked that. I liked him a lot.
yeah, and that's and that's how I took that scene as well.
Yeah.
Like the guy's trying to protect everybody, and it's to the point where, like, it's a bank, it's insured. Somebody comes in with guns, just give what they want. The money's going to be back anyway.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
It sucks. That, like the one thing I liked about it because I didn't see this coming was they robbed the bank. There's only like $1,000 in there.
Yeah, because the money
truck
was
just
already.
came.
Yeah, and then he starts swearing up a storm because he got the wrong information from the guy at the
Depository or
at
whatever.
the depository. Yeah, so that was funny. But what did you think of the lead teller? Because there was a scene where she goes out with him.
Yeah.
And her hand gets grabbed, and she was like, "Leave me alone. Like, take your hand off me. I have my girls in there. Like,
Yeah.
I like, it's one of those things. When I was watching it last night, and every time I watch this, I realize new things or I connect dots. You get a feeling from people that grew up in that era, and again, these are generational differences. She didn't want to leave. Like, she was the lead teller at that branch.
Yeah.
She was not going to leave her girls.
Yeah.
She was not going to leave them alone to deal with that situation on their own. She wanted to be there, regardless of what the situation was. So she had an opportunity to get out, and she
didn't take it.
She didn't take it.
Yeah.
And then it is going to be interesting because of your job. But what did you think of the portrayal of the media in this?
That's about right.
It's about
Yeah, I mean, like, because they all kind of just run in there and try to get this story, and like they're given what they have from the police, and
yeah,
it like depending on like the whole. There are two homosexuals robbing this bank.
yeah,
Like, I can see how something like that could get mixed up. Like, even with the police, sometimes there are situations where they think they know what's going on, and it might get askewed by accident. Like, so I've seen that happen.
Yeah.
In real life. But yeah, like.
Yeah,
I'd be there with a camera. Like I probably wouldn't break the barrier.
Yeah,
unless they told me to. But yeah, it's about right.
Yeah.
What I was surprised by was it's the 1970s.
Yeah.
He's in the bank talking to the guy on the TV, and there's no delay. Like that took me out of it. Like that. I do live streams today, and I have a 45-second delay. Like, that's the streaming service, but because there are ones where you don't have a delay.
Yeah.
But this is the 70s. How the hell do
you
not have that delay?
Part of that, and to be honest, there's a reason why there is now, I think they have a 7-second delay on sporting events. Because they used to be done live. Like, live.
You know what the reason is?
Well, to make sure that they...
3 words.
Yeah.
Janet Jackson's...
Well, not just that, because they did it before that.
You fill in the third word.
I know.
Yeah.
but
I couldn't pick which one to take. There were so many roads to take.
Yeah,
and I was
there's
like,
so many roads to take on that one.
What?
But I mean, it's not just that though, because the sport, because I mean, like football, baseball, hockey, they've had 7-second delays for the past like 15 years.
Yeah.
And it's because of fans.
Yeah.
Yelling stuff up at the broadcast booth so they can take that stuff out. They don't always get it because you can still hear it sometimes, especially on the radio, but they've had it for a while.
Well, and this is a good example because you just made me think of something, and I was going to bring that up later anyway. I was at Penn State for the whole Joe Paterno, Sandusky scandal. And I live downtown, so I got off my bus, like right off of Old Main.
Yeah.
Coming back from work, and there were a bunch of people outside the Old Main building, and CNN was there.
Yeah.
So I got back to my apartment, and CNN's outside reporting like Joe Paterno was fired.
Yeah.
And there was a bunch of students behind them chanting "fuck the media," and I could tell what they were saying.
Yeah.
I don't think they knew what they were saying. Like,
yeah.
You could tell, and eventually they cut it.
Yeah.
And went back to the studio. But like, yeah, that's what you're talking about. Like,
yeah.
people in the environment, like chanting things like,
yeah, that's one of the reasons why
CNN.
they have it. Yeah.
Like, it's one of the downfalls of live TV. Like, you don't know what's going to happen. Like if something goes wrong, you have to be able to
take care of it,
fix it right there on the spot, and address it. And how do you do that? Like, what happens? So,
yeah,
that's always fun.
It is, and I didn't really think about that, about them like live streaming, because it's like he's looking at the TV.
The same time, well, it's the whole thing with like if you're on the radio, they tell you to turn down the radio because you get feedback.
Yeah,
and like it's a movie, so I can suspend it a little bit. But I was like, like, I know that's not like.
Yeah, and in that scene though, he also brings up like this is the mid '70s, and one of the things I love about this movie is the fact that it's still like kind of relevant.
Yeah.
It's still kind of relevant because he talks about, the reporter's asking him, why do you feel like you have to steal the money? Can't you get a job? And he goes, yeah, fine, get a job. And then in the 70s, the big thing was to get a good job, you need to be in a union, to get yourself a union card. And then he said about, well, how about non-union jobs? And he starts talking about, well, fine, you mean like being a bank teller? Like what? A bank teller makes what, 114 a week? Now, granted, it's a little bit more, but inflation, whatever, but still. It's a little bit more, but he was getting to a point where it's like, okay, fine, get a job, but I'm still going to be in the same situation I am now, depending on like what your skill set is and where you're living. So there's other parts of this movie too where they kind of touch on that, but it's one of those things where if anybody hasn't seen this movie, like just watch it with a score sheet and like even just do something simple, like do the whole like 4 dashes and the line through for 5. Anytime something gets mentioned that you feel is still culturally relevant to today, do that. And I'm pretty sure you'll end up with more than 15 things.
We're about 30 minutes into this thing. If anyone hasn't seen the movie and they're still listening, good for you.
Good for you.
Like, you're a number one fan. Thank you for being you.
Thank you. So, what do you think of how it ended?
It seemed abrupt.
Yeah.
But it fit. Like, it wasn't too abrupt. Like, that's how something like that would end. Like, you give them what they want to a point. Like, then I knew they were never going to get on a plane.
Yeah, no.
I was kind of surprised they both didn't die.
Mm-hmm.
Because I thought they were both going to go or both get arrested. I didn't think it would be 1 and 1.
Yeah.
But I liked the way it just like it ended, and they put them in cuffs, and everyone went their separate ways, and they gave you like
just a brief description.
Description of what was going on, what happened to everyone. So
and what did you think of when the FBI got involved? Did you feel the change?
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah, you could definitely feel the change. Like they were still playing along as much as they needed to, but they weren't going to give them power back. They weren't going to no more favors. So, and that's usually how the FBI is. They'll come in and they'll take over.
Yeah. One of the things prior to ending this, one of the things I wanted to go over, because this is what fascinates me about this movie. The actual robbery happened on August 22nd, 1972. The guy's name was John, not Sonny. He served 5 years out of a 20-year sentence in prison. He was only given $7,800 for the rights to the movie, which translates to $40,000 today. And he later on earned 1% of the of the net profit from the movie. That money went for Eden's sex change.
Oh, really?
So the actual person, that
it all worked out.
Leon, yeah, he actually got she actually got the change so that she actually fit what she was. Unfortunately, Eden did die of AIDS later on. So, like, as a lot of people in that community during that time, a lot of them died of AIDS. Was one of them. She was one of them. When it came to John, I believe he is still alive. If I'm right, because I don't believe that there is a. I didn't see a death date.
Okay.
But he's been interviewed a bunch of times about it. He's been. Oh no, he did die in 2006.
Okay. In
New York at the age of 60. Yes, and yes, I am reading this because I can't remember dates that well.
That's all right.
But the actual historical accuracies that are different from the movie. He had already been broken up with his wife for 2 years prior to meeting Eden. So, the movie portrayed him leaving his wife for Eden was inaccurate. He had left her 2 years prior to even meeting her, Eden.
That confused me because he was married to
the one.
Yeah, the one with the kids. And then
married to
So that confused me because they were just at Coney Island.
They were supposed. They were trying to show
this is New York, not Utah.
Yeah, I think they were trying to show a little bit more pressure on him than what there was. But I mean, for a movie, it's good to have that.
Yeah, you exaggerate
change.
a little bit. So.
Exaggerate a little bit. He is. But he is. John has said that the movie's only about 30% accurate, which I think he's mainly referring to a lot of the interactions that happened inside the bank. But the one thing that is accurate is that from people that survived it was that he wasn't your average bank robber. He really went into it not really knowing what he was doing.
Yeah.
And so
he didn't have a plan like the guys in Ocean's 11.
Yeah, no. He definitely went in, and there were multiple times in reality and in the movie where if they just would have left,
they would have been fine.
Nothing. I mean, besides him getting caught 2 weeks later, nothing would have happened.
Yeah.
I mean, really, at the bank, because it's instead of just taking them to the bathroom and then finding the other woman there, if he just would have left with the money that he had, I mean, he wouldn't have gotten that far, but the whole hostage situation would have never happened.
Yeah.
Trying to remember, because I was reading, he sold the rights for, in today's money, $40,000, which really wasn't that much, in all honesty. He got 1% of the movie. He's done other. He actually sued.
Oh, really?
He actually sued over the movie because of how little money that he actually signed for. And when questioned about why he didn't help out more for the storyline of the film, he said that he didn't meet the writer purposely because he felt that he wasn't given enough money for it because he was still in prison when he got the rights to it. Or is when he sold it. It was 7 hostages. It was a 14-hour situation. Yeah, and one of the things that's interesting about this, because of the gay connection to this, 1972, this is New York. The Stonewall riots happened in 1968. So I really feel that the Stonewall riots was kind of like a flashpoint. That was the start of getting more recognition for that community. Yeah. In the forefront. And then this happened, and in the early 70s, after the riots happened, Hollywood felt that it would be appropriate, and I feel like it was, to make a movie with this kind of an overtone in it. Yeah. And I feel like that kind of forced it a little bit more. And that's one of those things where it's if you really want to see how difficult it was to be that back then, watch this movie because people from the community shows up in the movie. Like they show them showing up and they get booed. Like they get jeered really bad. And they go through, and again, 1970s, they don't do movie makeup like they do now. Like they show people like when they're sweating, they're sweating. If their skin's shiny, it's shiny. Like they don't.
Yeah,
do it. And they showed that crowd. They panned it, and it's. This is one of my favorite movies.
Yeah,
it's because of if you watch this movie, you'll actually get an idea of like what things haven't really changed that much.
No.
They really haven't.
So the actual bank robbery was in 1972.
1972.
And the movie came out in 75.
75. 3 years.
That's insane.
That's insane. And
that's an insane turnaround.
And here's the thing. The movie was based off of an article that was written in Life magazine.
Okay.
It was called "The Boys in the Bank."
Yeah. And they changed. I read that they were going to name the movie that, but then it sounded too much like a goofball comedy.
Yeah. So it was. Let's see. It was Life magazine. The film was inspired by a P.F. Klug, Kluge article, "The Boys in the Bank," which tells the story of the two people.
Yeah.
Of technically the three guys that robbed the bank. In 1972, this article was published in Life in 1972. So the article was published the same year as the actual robbery itself.
Yeah.
And again, a 3-year turnaround, and it was in theaters.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah,
but at the same time, it's kind of an easy production to put together.
It is. It really, really.
You can either
is.
do this on a back lot or close down a street for a weekend or two, and
when it comes to the how this film has resonated, it was the film received critical acclaim upon its September release.
Did it win any Oscars?
It won an Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay.
Okay.
In 2009, the film was deemed culturally and historically significant, and by the Library of Congress, and was selected for preservation in the National Film Registry.
So that's odd that it won an original screenplay if it was based off of a article.
Well, it was based off an article, off of an actual event, and I think the reason why was because you know how the movie Crash came out not that long ago, that had to do with like racial stereotypes.
13 years ago, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, 13 years ago. I bought it when it first when I saw it, and I haven't seen it since.
It's bad that I know what year that came out.
Crash. Okay, when Crash came out, it was kind of the same deal because it kind of held a mirror up. It was like, hey, look, we might have progressed, but we're still stuck in this. Yeah. This type of
mentality,
his mentality, and that movie got reviews like extreme reviews.
I remember
this movie's Dog Day Afternoon is pretty much kind of the same thing, except it was not as much about racial stereotypes, more about just the way things were. Yeah. In the early 70s.
I remember when Crash first came out on like DVD and Netflix was like you got the discs. Yeah. I had that on my queue for the longest time because I wanted to see it. Yeah. And I never got it because so many people wanted to see Crash that because it was word of mouth. Like, ew, you got to check this movie out. Yeah. I still haven't seen it. So.
I mean, it's good. It is really good. And I feel like this movie did the same thing that Crash did when it came out. Like it honestly makes people feel uncomfortable. And I'm pretty sure that this movie did the exact same thing back then. Oh yeah, I'm sure. And there's parts of the movie that I feel like just little things that they did, like when Leon was talking about how about how he went to a psychiatrist and he was told that he was a woman in a man's body, and like the science was there even then, like it was legit. That was the diagnosis. Now, how they went about treating it was a lot different than what they're doing now. But two of the cops in the background, they're laughing the entire time that he's talking about this, and that's back when the normal New York hostage negotiator is in charge, and he looks at the one, and the one turns around and walks away. because it's like, look, I don't care if you think this is nuts. Like, this is real to them. Like, you have to just, we need to work on this.
Yeah.
And so, and eventually they got to the point where they actually let the two talk. And even then, I mean, for a mainstream movie to have that kind of a conversation going on between two guys, that's kind of forcing that narrative too. For back then. Nowadays, granted, people celebrated it back then. People would celebrate it now for having something like that, but for being 30, 40 years ago, it's
All right, we should probably wrap it up here. We're running out of time.
Yes, we are.
So, I recommend it. I enjoyed it. It definitely sucks you in, even though I was falling asleep.
Yeah, It was also late at night when you saw it too. So
that's on me.
Yeah.
So I definitely recommend it if you haven't seen it. But
Yeah.
like I said before, if you're listening to this podcast up to this point and you haven't seen it,
thank you.
Thank you. Real quick, while we're talking about Pacino,
Yeah.
did you hear what his next role is?
No.
Joe Paterno.
You serious?
There are pictures that they're doing the Sandusky story.
He's old enough now that he could do it.
There's pictures of him in costume, and
He looks like him.
He looks like him. I think.
Yeah.
He had the whole outfit on. I was like, damn.
Yeah.
I'm kind of not sure where they're going with this movie.
No.
It's going to be
Interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, especially since I was at Penn State for that whole story. It'll be interesting to see how they portray it.
Mm-hmm. Do you think Bishop will show up from Aliens and shoot Sal in the head at the end of the movie?
Huh?
The actor who shoots Sal at the end of Dog Day Afternoon, that's Bishop from Aliens.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it is.
Huh.
It's just a lot younger. Well, 10 years younger.
The more you know.
The more you know. That was really thrown in there randomly. I apologize.
That's okay. I can cut it out.
Yay.
Good.
Jerk.
Well, I'm the editor, and you're not.
That's true.
Yeah, so I can cut everything you said out of this podcast.
Just have it be you.
Yeah, just be me. It'd be really weird.
It would be.
But experimental podcasting. All right, everybody. I think next time we're going to do something a little bit different.
A little bit, yes.
A little bit.
A little bit.
We're going to do a movie neither of us have seen.
Yes.
We're going to do the classic Stand By Me.
Yep.
Because neither of us has seen that.
Surprisingly enough.
Yeah. So we'll have that coming out for you soon. So until next time, I'm Alan.
And I'm Ryan.
And we'll see you next week.
See you next week.